Nothing like finding your wife's pregnancy test in the trash to make you question everything you thought you knew about your marriage, especially when you haven't touched her in 3 months. I'm Caleb Morris, 39 years old, commercial architect, and apparently the biggest fool in Millbrook, Ohio. The pink plus sign on that plastic stick might as well have been a neon sign flashing "sucker" in my face. Lauren burst through the front door like she owned the world, designer purse swinging, her blonde hair perfect despite the October wind. "Caleb, where are you? I have amazing news." I was sitting at our kitchen table, the pregnancy test placed carefully on a napkin between my coffee cup and the morning paper. The house we'd bought 2 years ago, the one with the mortgage that kept me awake at nights, suddenly felt like a mausoleum. "Right here, sweetheart," I called, my voice steady as concrete. 20 years in construction before I got my architecture degree taught me how to keep my face blank when the foundation's cracking. She rounded the corner, practically glowing with excitement, then froze when she saw what was on the table. Her face went through about 6 different expressions in 2 seconds: surprise, panic, calculation, then back to that fake smile she'd perfected for her marketing job. "Oh," she said, her voice smaller now. "You found it." I did. I leaned back in my chair, studying her like I would a blueprint with suspicious measurements. Funny thing, though. I was trying to remember the last time we were intimate, and I keep coming up empty. Must be my age, right? Memory going. Lauren's hand went to her stomach in that protective gesture pregnant women make, except she wasn't protecting my child. She was protecting her lie. "Caleb, I can explain." "I'm sure you can." I picked up the test, turning it over in my hands. "You always were good with explanations. Like how you've been working late every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 2 months, or why Tyler Grant's BMW keeps showing up in the Sunset Motel parking lot the same nights you're supposedly at those marketing seminars." The color drained from her face. Tyler Grant, 36 years old, real estate agent, the kind of guy who wore cologne to the gym and called everyone buddy while looking down on them. He worked in the same building as Lauren, drove a car worth more than I made in 6 months, and apparently had been making himself comfortable in my wife. "You've been following me?" she whispered. "Didn't have to. Mrs. Henderson next door has nothing better to do than watch traffic patterns. She mentioned seeing Tyler's car here during the day when I'm at work. Funny how a real estate agent needs to visit a married woman so often, don't you think?" Lauren sank into the chair across from me, her perfect composure finally cracking. "It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think." I set the test down gently. "The question is, what are we going to do about it?" She looked up at me with those green eyes that had hooked me 12 years ago, back when I was a nobody contractor and she was the college girl who somehow saw something in me. Now I wondered if she'd ever seen anything at all, or if I'd just been a stepping stone to the life she really wanted. "The baby could be yours," she said quietly. "Could be." I nodded. 50-50 chance, right? Maybe better odds than that, depending on how careful you and Tyler have been with timing. I leaned forward. "But here's the thing, Lauren. I don't gamble with my life anymore, not after working my ass off to build something real." "So, what do you want? A paternity test?" "Eventually." I stood up, walking to the window that looked out on our perfectly manicured suburban street. "First, I want to understand how we got here, how my wife decided our marriage was worth less than whatever Tyler Grant was offering." "It wasn't like that." "Then tell me what it was like." I turned back to her. "And don't lie to me. I've had enough lies to last a lifetime." Lauren was crying now, but they were careful tears, the kind that didn't mess up her makeup. Even in confession, she was performing. "I felt neglected," she said. "You're always working, always stressed about money, always worried about the next project. Tyler made me feel special again." "Special?" I tasted the word like it was poison. "And the baby? Does Tyler know he might be a father?" Her silence was answer enough. I walked back to the table and picked up the pregnancy test one more time. Such a small thing to destroy a marriage. Such a simple piece of plastic to reveal that everything I'd built was constructed on sand. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice calm as a lake before a storm. "You're going to pack a bag and stay somewhere else tonight. Tomorrow, we're going to see a lawyer. And then we're going to find out whose baby you're carrying." "Caleb, please." "I'm not angry, Lauren." And that was the truth. I was past anger, past hurt, past all the emotions that might have saved our marriage if she'd shown me this respect months ago. I'm just done being played for a fool. She stood up, smoothing her skirt, already calculating her next move. "Where am I supposed to go?" "I'm sure Tyler has ideas. Or your friend Vanessa. She's always been good at helping you make decisions." Something flickered in Lauren's eyes at the mention of her best friend, but it was gone too quickly for me to read. "Fine," she said. "But this isn't over." "No," I agreed, watching her gather her things with the efficiency of someone who'd already planned for this moment. "It's not." After she left, I sat alone in our kitchen, listening to the house settle around me. 20 years of hard work, 12 years of marriage, and it all came down to a pink plus sign on a pregnancy test. But I wasn't the same man Lauren had married. I wasn't even the same man who'd confronted her an hour ago. Something had shifted inside me, like tumblers falling into place in a lock. She thought this was about the baby, about Tyler, about her betrayal. She was wrong. This was about respect. And I was about to teach everyone in my life exactly what that meant. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in 15 years. I called in sick to work. Not because I was actually sick, but because I had research to do, and some research requires a man's full attention. Lauren hadn't come home. Her car wasn't in the driveway, and she hadn't answered any of my calls. That was fine. It gave me time to think, and thinking was something I'd apparently stopped doing somewhere along the way. I started with our finances. Joint checking account, joint savings, joint credit cards. Everything we'd built together, which meant everything I'd built while she spent it. The numbers told a story I'd been too stupid to read before. Cash withdrawals every Tuesday and Thursday, charges at restaurants I'd never been to, payments to places I didn't recognize, hotel charges, spa treatments, expensive lingerie from stores that didn't carry my wife's usual practical style. She'd been planning this for months. My phone rang around 10 a.m. Unknown number. "Caleb Morris?" "Speaking." "This is Detective Sarah Walsh with Millbrook PD. I need to ask you some questions about your wife, Lauren Morris." "What about her?" "She filed a report this morning claiming you threatened her yesterday, made her fear for her safety. I need you to come down to the station." I set down my coffee cup very carefully. "Detective Walsh, my wife is having an affair and told me she's pregnant with another man's child. Yesterday was the first time I'd confronted her about it. What exactly did she claim I threatened?" "She says you became violent when she tried to leave, that you blocked her from the door and made threatening statements. Did she mention the pregnancy test I found, or the affair I discovered, or the fact that she packed a bag and left voluntarily?" Silence on the other end. Then, "Mr. Morris, I still need you to come in." "I'll be there in an hour. And, Detective, you might want to ask Lauren where she spent last night. I have a feeling Tyler Grant can provide her with an alibi." After I hung up, I sat staring at the phone. This was Lauren's opening move. Paint me as the dangerous husband, make herself the victim. It was smart, actually. Get ahead of the narrative before I could tell my side. But Lauren had forgotten something important about me. I'd spent 20 years in construction, dealing with contractors who'd steal your tools and lie about timelines. I'd learned to document everything. I grabbed my laptop and started printing. Bank statements, credit card bills, phone records I could access through our family plan. Every piece of evidence that showed the pattern of her affair. Then I called my lawyer. "Jack, it's Caleb Morris. I need to see you today. My wife's trying to have me arrested." Jack Patterson had been handling legal work for my construction company for a decade. He was 65, sharp as a blade, and had seen every dirty trick in the book. "What's she claiming?" "Domestic threats. But Jack, she's pregnant with another man's child, and I can prove the affair. She's trying to get ahead of the divorce." "Smart woman. Stupid move, though. Come in at 2. Bring everything you've got." I spent the rest of the morning gathering evidence, and that's when I found something that made me freeze. Lauren's laptop was still logged into her email. She'd been careless, probably panicked after our confrontation, and there, in her sent folder, was a chain of emails that went back 3 months. Not to Tyler Grant, to Vanessa Hawkins. Vanessa, Lauren's best friend since college. Vanessa, who'd been coming to our house for dinner every Sunday. Vanessa, who'd been so supportive when I was struggling to get my architecture business off the ground. Vanessa, who apparently had been planning my destruction for months. The emails were coded, but not well. The project is moving forward. He's starting to suspect, but C is too trusting. Tyler is perfect for Phase 2. Once the baby comes, we can move to Phase 3. Phase 3. What the hell was Phase 3? I kept reading, my hands shaking. There were references to the investment, to splitting the take, to making sure C gets nothing. This wasn't just an affair. This was a con. My phone buzzed. Text from Lauren. "I'm sorry about the police. Can we talk? I'm at Vanessa's." I stared at the message, then at the emails on the screen. Lauren was at Vanessa's house, probably planning their next move. The 2 women I'd trusted most in the world, working together to destroy me. But they'd made one critical mistake. They'd underestimated exactly how much I'd learned about human nature in 20 years of dealing with people who wanted to screw me over. I forwarded the entire email chain to my personal account, then deleted the evidence that I'd accessed Lauren's laptop. Let them think I was still the trusting fool who'd married a woman out of his league and never asked questions. At the police station, Detective Walsh turned out to be a tired-looking woman in her 40s who'd clearly dealt with her share of domestic disputes. "Your wife says you grabbed her arm when she tried to leave yesterday," she said, studying me across a metal table in an interview room that smelled like disinfectant and desperation. "Detective, I never touched my wife. I found evidence she was having an affair, confronted her about it, and she packed a bag and left. Here's what really happened." I laid out the timeline, showed her the bank records, the pattern of deception. Walsh's expression changed as she looked through the evidence. "This is pretty comprehensive," she said finally. "I'm an architect, Detective. I don't do anything without documentation." I leaned forward. "My wife is pregnant with another man's child and trying to make me the bad guy before I can file for divorce. The domestic violence claim is her opening move." Walsh closed the folder. "Mr. Morris, I'm going to be straight with you. Your wife came in here this morning with tears in her eyes and a story about an abusive husband. But these financial records tell a different story, and the fact that she spent last night with her alleged affair partner doesn't help her credibility. So, what happens now? Now? You go home, stay away from your wife, and let the lawyers handle it. But Mr. Morris," she stood up, extending her hand, "document everything. If this is what I think it is, you're going to need every piece of evidence you can get." I drove home through the October afternoon, past the suburban streets where I'd thought I was building a life. The leaves were turning, the air was crisp, and everything looked exactly the same as it had yesterday. But I wasn't the same man who'd driven these streets yesterday. That man had been a mark, a target, a fool who'd worked 60-hour weeks to pay for his wife's affair. This man was something different. This man was angry. And this man was just getting started. The call came at 6 a.m. on Thursday morning. I was already awake, had been for hours, sitting at my kitchen table with coffee and a legal pad, planning my next moves like a military campaign. "Caleb, it's Mike Chen." Mike Chen had been my best friend since high school. We'd played football together, double-dated, been each other's best man. He was a successful contractor now, married to a woman named Jessica who'd always gotten along well with Lauren. "Hey, Mike, you're up early." "Yeah, well..." He paused, and I could hear the discomfort in his voice. "Look, man, I need to talk to you about something. Jessica got a call from Lauren last night." I set down my coffee cup. "What kind of call?" "Lauren's saying you've been abusive, that she's afraid of you. She's asking if she can stay with us for a while." The words hit me like a punch to the gut, but not because they were unexpected. I'd been waiting for this, the moment when Lauren's lies would start turning my friends against me. "And what did Jessica say?" Another pause. "She said yes, Caleb. Lauren's coming over today with some of her things." I closed my eyes, feeling the ground shift beneath me again. Mike and Jessica Chen. 20 years of friendship, and it took one phone call from my lying wife to make them choose sides. "Mike, did Lauren mention that she's pregnant with another man's child?" "What? No, she..." "Caleb, what are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that your friend Lauren has been screwing Tyler Grant for months, got pregnant, and is now trying to destroy me before I can divorce her." My voice was steady, cold. Did she mention any of that in her sob story? Silence on the other end. Then, "Jesus, Caleb, are you sure?" "I have bank records, phone records, and hotel receipts. I also have emails between Lauren and Vanessa Hawkins planning this whole thing like it's some kind of business deal." "Emails? What kind of emails?" I could hear the doubt creeping into Mike's voice, the first crack in Lauren's narrative. The kind where they discuss phases of their plan and splitting the take. "Mike, my wife isn't a victim. She's a con artist. But she seems so scared, so..." "She's an actress, Mike. She's been acting for months." I stood up, pacing to the window. "Look, I get it. She's convincing. But I need you to ask yourself something. In 20 years of friendship, have you ever known me to hurt a woman?" Long pause. "No, never." "Then why would I start now?" I heard him sigh. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to be careful, and I want you to remember that there are two sides to every story." I paused. "But Mike, if Jessica's already made up her mind, then I guess I know where we stand." "It's not like that. It's exactly like that." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "You've known me for 20 years, but it took one phone call from Lauren to make you doubt me. That tells me everything I need to know about our friendship." Caleb, come on. Tell Jessica to be careful with Lauren. And Mike, when the truth comes out, and it will, remember this conversation. I hung up before he could respond. The next call came an hour later. Tom Bradley, another old friend. Same story, different details. Lauren had reached out to his wife, Sarah, claiming I'd become controlling and dangerous. She was asking for support, for places to stay, for people to believe her version of events, and they were believing her. By noon, I'd gotten calls from 4 different friends. Some were concerned, asking if I was okay, if I needed help. Others were accusatory, wanting to know how I could do this to Lauren, especially when she was pregnant. None of them wanted to hear about the affair. None of them wanted to see the evidence. They'd already made up their minds. I was sitting in my lawyer's office by 2 p.m., laying out the pattern of calls, the coordinated campaign to isolate me from my support network. It's textbook, Jack Patterson said, reviewing my notes. Abusers often try to isolate their victims from friends and family. She's flipping the script, making you look like the abuser while she plays victim. So what do? Document everything. Record phone calls if it's legal in Ohio, which it is since you're a party to the conversation. Save every text, every email, every voicemail. He leaned back in his chair. And Caleb, prepare yourself for this to get worse before it gets better. How much worse? She's pregnant and claiming abuse. That's a powerful combination in family court. Even if the baby isn't yours, even if you can prove the affair, judges tend to be sympathetic to pregnant women who claim they're in danger. I felt the walls closing in. So she wins? She wins the first round. But Caleb, I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've learned something important about people like your wife. Jack leaned forward. They always overplay their hand. Always. The trick is being patient enough to let them do it. That evening, I was working in my home office when I heard a car in the driveway. I looked out the window and saw Jessica Chen's Honda Civic. Lauren got out of the passenger seat, along with Vanessa Hawkins. They were coming to get Lauren's things. I watched them approach the front door, these 2 women who'd been in my house dozens of times, who'd eaten my food and laughed at my jokes and pretended to be my friends. The doorbell rang. I opened it, keeping my expression neutral. Ladies. Lauren looked nervous, but Vanessa stepped forward like she owned the place. Vanessa was 35, blonde like Lauren, but harder somehow, with the kind of smile that never reached her eyes. Caleb, she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. We're just here to get some of Lauren's things. We don't want any trouble. No trouble, I agreed, stepping aside. Take whatever you need. They moved past me into the house, and I followed at a distance, watching. Lauren went straight to our bedroom, while Vanessa lingered in the living room, studying me. You know, she said casually, Lauren's been my best friend for 15 years. I've never seen her this scared. Scared of what? Of you, Caleb. Of what you might do. I looked at this woman who'd been coming to my house every Sunday, who'd helped Lauren plan surprise birthday parties for me, who'd been playing the long game for months. Vanessa, I said quietly, I know about the emails. For just a second, her mask slipped. I saw fear flicker across her face before the false sympathy returned. I don't know what you're talking about. Phase 3, I said. What is it? Now the fear was real, and she couldn't hide it. You're paranoid, Caleb. Maybe that's why Lauren's so scared. Maybe. I smiled, and I knew it wasn't a nice smile. Or maybe you and Lauren made one critical mistake. What's that? You assumed I was stupid. Vanessa opened her mouth to respond, but Lauren came downstairs with a suitcase, moving quickly. I got what I need, she said to Vanessa, not looking at me. Let's go. They headed for the door, but I called after them. Lauren? She turned, and for a moment, I saw the woman I'd married. Young, beautiful, full of dreams we'd planned to build together. The paternity test, I said. We're doing it as soon as legally possible. She nodded, her hand going to her stomach again. Fine. And Lauren? Tell Tyler I said hello. They left, and I stood in my empty house listening to the silence. But it wasn't really empty, it was full of possibilities. The showdown came on a Saturday morning in November at Millbrook Park during the annual Harvest Festival. I hadn't planned it that way, but sometimes the universe has a sense of timing. I was there alone, walking among the craft booths and food trucks, trying to remember what normal life felt like. The paternity test results were in my jacket pocket. Tyler Grant was indeed the father of Lauren's baby. My lawyer had the official documents, and we were filing amended divorce papers on Monday, but that's when I saw them. Mike Chen, Tom Bradley, and 3 other guys I'd known since high school. my former friends standing in a circle near the beer tent, talking in the kind of hushed tones that meant they were discussing something serious. They saw me at the same time I saw them. Mike broke away from the group and walked over, his face grim. "Caleb, we need to talk." "Do we?" I kept walking, but he fell into step beside me. Yeah, we do. This has gone far enough." I stopped walking. "What has gone far enough, Mike?" "The harassment. The threats. Lauren's terrified to leave the house." Around us, families were enjoying the festival. Kids running around with cotton candy, couples holding hands, the kind of wholesome small-town scene that made Millbrook famous in the regional tourism brochures. "What harassment?" I asked. "Don't play dumb. The drive-bys, the phone calls, following her to work." I stared at him. "Mike, I haven't contacted Lauren since she moved out 3 weeks ago. I haven't driven by anywhere she might be, and I sure as hell haven't called her." "She has proof, Caleb. Photos of your truck outside her office. Recordings of threatening voicemails." Something cold settled in my stomach. "Show me." "What?" "Show me these photos. Play me these recordings. Right now." Mike hesitated. "I don't have them with me." "Of course you don't." I looked past him to where Tom Bradley and the others were watching us. "Let me guess. Lauren showed them to Jessica, who showed them to you, and now you're all convinced I'm some kind of stalker." "Are you saying she's lying?" "I'm saying I haven't contacted your house guest in 3 weeks. I'm also saying that if she has photos of my truck, she either took them before she moved out, or she's having someone else take them." I pulled out my phone. "Want to see my GPS history? Want to check my work schedule? Want to verify where I've been every day for the past month?" Mike's confidence wavered. "Why would she lie about something like that?" "Because she's been lying about everything else." I reached into my jacket and pulled out a folded paper. "Paternity test results, Mike. Came in yesterday. Want to guess who the father is?" He took the paper, unfolded it, read it. His face went pale. "Tyler Grant," he said quietly. "Tyler Grant," I confirmed. "The man she's been screwing for months while I paid the bills and played the faithful husband." I took the paper back. "So when you ask me why she'd lie about harassment, Mike, maybe you should ask yourself why she lied about everything else." Tom Bradley had walked over during our conversation, along with the other guys. They formed a semicircle around me, and I realized this was an intervention. They'd planned this. "Look, Caleb," Tom said, "we've all known you for 20 years. We don't want to believe you'd hurt Lauren, but she's pregnant and scared and—" "She's pregnant with another man's child," I interrupted, "and the only thing she's scared of is losing half my assets in the divorce." "That's not what she says." "What does she say, Tom?" "She says you found out about the affair and snapped. That you've been threatening her and Tyler, following them around, making their lives hell." I looked at these men I'd grown up with, played sports with, stood up for at their weddings. They'd already decided I was guilty. The evidence didn't matter. The truth didn't matter. Their minds were made up. "You know what?" I said, stepping back from their circle. "You're right. I did snap." They tensed, ready for me to confirm their worst suspicions. "I snapped when I realized my wife was a liar and a cheat. I snapped when I found out she'd been planning to destroy me for months. And I really snapped when I realized my best friends would rather believe her lies than ask me for the truth." "Caleb," Mike started. "No, Mike. You've said enough. You all have." I looked around the circle of faces, memorizing them. 20 years of friendship, and it took 3 weeks of lies from a woman you barely know to turn you against me? "She's not a stranger," Tom said. "She's your wife." "She's my ex-wife, and she's a con artist." I pulled out my phone. "But you know what? I'm done trying to convince you. I'm done defending myself to people who've already decided I'm guilty." I started to walk away, but Mike grabbed my arm. "Where are you going?" I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back up at his face. "I'm going to finish what Lauren started." "What does that mean?" I smiled, and I knew it wasn't a pleasant expression. "It means you picked the wrong side, Mike. All of you did." I pulled my arm free and walked away, leaving them standing there in the middle of the harvest festival, surrounded by families and laughter and the kind of innocence I'd lost somewhere along the way. But as I walked, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Relief. The pretense was over. The friendships were gone. The old life was finished. Now I could focus on building a new one. And the first step was making sure Lauren and Vanessa and Tyler Grant learned exactly what happened when you tried to con a man who'd spent 20 years dealing with people who wanted to screw him over. They thought they were playing chess. They were about to learn I'd been playing a different game entirely. The final confrontation happened on a cold December evening at the Millbrook Community Center, during what was supposed to be Lauren's baby shower. I wasn't invited, obviously, but I'd been watching, waiting, documenting everything for 2 months, and I'd finally found what I needed to end this once and for all. The discovery had come through Tyler Grant, of all people. Tyler, it turned out, wasn't as smart as he thought he was. He'd been bragging to his real estate buddies about his investment opportunity, how he'd hooked up with a married woman who was going to take her husband for everything in the divorce, and how they were going to split the proceeds. Tyler's mistake was bragging to the wrong person. Danny Rodriguez was a real estate agent who'd done business with my architecture firm. When he heard Tyler's story, something didn't sit right. He'd known me for years, knew I wasn't the type to abuse anyone, and Tyler's version of events sounded off. So Danny started asking questions. And that's how I learned about Phase 3. Phase 3 wasn't just about destroying my reputation and taking half my assets in the divorce. Phase 3 was about the life insurance policy Lauren had taken out on me 6 months ago, the one I'd signed without reading carefully because I trusted my wife. $2 million, payable to Lauren Morris in the event of my passing. They weren't just planning to ruin me. They were planning to ruin me. Danny had brought me recordings of Tyler's conversations, photos of him meeting with Vanessa Hawkins, documentation of bank accounts they'd opened together, the whole conspiracy laid out in detail. But the best part? Tyler had been recording his own conversations with Lauren and Vanessa, keeping evidence in case he needed to protect himself later. Honor among thieves, apparently, was a myth. So on the night of Lauren's baby shower, while 30 women sat in the community center celebrating her upcoming motherhood, I walked in through the back door with Detective Sarah Walsh, 2 other officers, and a warrant for Lauren's arrest. The baby shower stopped mid-conversation when we entered the main room. 30 faces turned toward us, confusion and alarm spreading through the crowd like ripples on a pond. Lauren was sitting in the center of it all, surrounded by gifts and pink decorations, playing the role of the glowing mother-to-be. She saw me and went pale. "Caleb? What are you doing here?" "Hello, Lauren." I looked around the room, seeing familiar faces. Jessica Chen, Sarah Bradley, other women who'd chosen to believe Lauren's lies. "Sorry to interrupt the celebration." Detective Walsh stepped forward. "Lauren Morris, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and filing false police reports." The room exploded in gasps and shocked murmurs. Lauren's face went from pale to gray. "What? No, this is... Caleb, what did you do?" "I didn't do anything, Lauren. You did it all yourself." I pulled out my phone and held it up. "Would you like to hear Tyler's recording of your conversation from last week? The one where you discussed the best way to make my passing look like an accident?" Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Detective Walsh was reading Lauren her rights, but I kept talking, my voice carrying across the silent room. "For anyone who's interested, my wife took out a $2 million life insurance policy on me 6 months ago. She's been having an affair with Tyler Grant, got pregnant with his child, and has been systematically destroying my reputation to isolate me from friends and family." I looked directly at Jessica Chen. The harassment she claimed I was doing? That was Tyler taking photos and making calls to create evidence of my supposed stalking. "You're lying," Lauren said, but her voice was weak. "Am I?" I nodded to Detective Walsh, who pulled out a folder. "We have recordings, Mrs. Morris. Your boyfriend was very thorough in documenting your plans. We also have the emails between you and Vanessa Hawkins discussing the phases of your operation." At the mention of Vanessa's name, Lauren's last bit of composure cracked. "Where is Vanessa?" she asked, looking around the room as if her co-conspirator might materialize. "Vanessa Hawkins was arrested 2 hours ago," Detective Walsh said. "She's currently explaining to our detectives how this was all your idea." That was a lie, but Lauren didn't know that. I watched her face as she realized her best friend had abandoned her. "And Tyler?" she whispered. "Tyler's been cooperating with our investigation for the past week," I said. "Turns out when faced with conspiracy to commit murder charges, he decided to save himself instead of you." The truth was, Tyler had been arrested at the same time as Vanessa. But Lauren was isolated now, surrounded by the wreckage of her lies, and I wanted her to understand exactly how alone she was. Detective Walsh was putting handcuffs on Lauren when she finally looked at me with something like her real self. Not the victim, not the actress, but the woman who'd planned to have me ruined for insurance money. "You bastard," she said quietly. "You ruined everything." "No, Lauren. You did that yourself." I looked around the room one more time, at all the women who'd believed her lies, who'd shunned me based on her performance. I just made sure everyone knew the truth. As they led her away, the room stayed silent. 30 women processing the fact that they'd been celebrating a baby shower for a woman who'd planned to murder her husband. I started to leave, but Jessica Chen called after me. Caleb, wait. I turned back. Jessica looked stricken, tears in her eyes. We were wrong, she said. Mike and I, all of us. We should have listened to you. Yes, I said simply. You should have. Can you forgive us? I looked at this woman who'd been my friend for 20 years, who'd chosen to believe a stranger's lies instead of asking me for the truth. I don't know, Jessica. Trust is like a foundation. Once it cracks, it's never quite as strong as it was before. I left her standing there and walked out into the December night. The case made headlines in the Millbrook Gazette and the regional news. Local woman arrested in murder for insurance plot. The details came out in court over the following months. The affair, the pregnancy, the systematic campaign to isolate me from my support network, the plan to make my passing look accidental. Tyler Grant pled guilty to conspiracy and got 15 years. Vanessa Hawkins claimed she thought it was just about the divorce money, not murder, but the jury didn't believe her. She got 12 years. Lauren fought the charges, claiming she'd been manipulated by Tyler and Vanessa. But the recordings were clear. Her voice discussing the insurance money, the timing, the methods. She got 25 to life. The baby was born in prison. Tyler's son, raised by his parents in another state. I sold the house, sold my business, and moved to Colorado. Started over at 40, building a new life in a place where no one knew my story. But sometimes, on quiet evenings in my mountain cabin, I think about trust and friendship and the price of believing lies. I think about the people who abandoned me when I needed them most.